presentation, the slides will be either compressed or not complete. Does anybody have any idea? All righty. Okay, well, let me get into it. I'll give you a little background.
I was on mute. Try it, because on my screen you show up like everybody else.
I'm sorry?
Try it, because on my screen you show up like everybody else.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe it's just my laptop. Sorry about that. All right. So let me fill you in a little bit about my background and why I'm here. So we enrolled our first child in kindergarten in Wellesley Public Schools in Honeywell in 2013. And it wasn't long after that that I started getting concerned about the education they were receiving. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I won't go into them all. If anybody wants to know, I certainly can fill you in later.
You're gonna share your screen.
But to put it in a nutshell, it seems like the curriculum at Honeywell when my kids were there, it didn't seem hardly any different than my curriculum when I started school in 1959. I mean, the only real difference is that instead of going to school for 5 days a week, we were only going 4.5 days. Then there was somewhat of a difference, and that's the introduction to Spanish. But other than that, it was certainly very nostalgic for me. But hey, we're a couple decades into the 21st century. I was very baffled. Anyway, I'll move along. So during the pandemic, I pulled.
You gotta share your screen. You're not sharing your presentation.
I don't want my presentation up. Excuse me. My wife is concerned my presentation is not showing up. And right now, I just want to present face to face. Sorry about the interruption. Anyway, during the pandemic, my daughter was, my oldest one, was in 6th grade in middle school. And of course, just like Stephanie, I saw what they were learning and what they weren't learning. And we had to make a gut-wrenching decision. We pulled them out. I got to tell you, I've been in the public school system my entire life. I've got 2 degrees from a public university. I am not a private school person. It was a gut-wrenching decision to have to pull them out and spend the extra money to put them in private school. But we enrolled them in Veritas Christian Academy. Now it only cost us $16,000 per student per year. And I say only, but that's a lot. However, it's actually 25% less than what Wellesley Public Schools spends per student. And I got to tell you, the difference in education is significant, actually very significant. I mean, just to give you an example, my 6th grader now, my little one, she has 30 math homework problems a day. She's tested every Friday, and that's just math. So why am I here? I'm here because I can't afford private school at the high school level. And my children really would prefer to attend high school with their friends from Wellesley. So my daughter will be re-enrolling in Wellesley's public school system as a 9th grader in the fall. Okay, let me share my screen now and put the presentation up. I assume everybody can see this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me put it in presentation mode. All right, let me just move this out of the way. Okay. All right, so it's been quite a journey since I put the warrant article forth in December, and I started out extremely confused because, everything I was hearing was exactly what Ms. Chow was trying to relate to everybody, that it's clickbait. It was prepared by journalists. Okay, was this ranking, the U.S. News ranking, is it real, or is it just something to sell magazines? So I spent the next several weeks trying to figure it out. And you see this little happy face guy sitting on the books. Trust me, it was a sad face I had for several weeks, because for the life of me, I could not figure out how they did the math. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. It didn't add up. And I was ready to reach the same conclusion that the superintendent and Ms. Chow reached. Then I had a bit of a breakthrough. If you go to the U.S. News website and try and click on their methodology, you get all these 404 errors. So you can't click through to exactly what's going into this ranking. But I did a lot of Googling, and somehow I got in some back door, and I found that this ranking methodology, it's right on target. It's legit, it's mathematical, it's prepared by education experts. Those education experts reside at RTI International. That's Research Triangle Institute International. All right. And there's a 12-page methodology. It doesn't sound like the superintendent has had a chance to read it yet. I've got a link in the supplemental information of my presentation. But based on his
Bruce,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for protocol, I think it would be better not to refer to individuals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I think it would be worthwhile to, by the way, I apologize. I didn't know what your protocol was there. I think it'd be worthwhile to take a trip to RTI International and sit down with their analysts and their statisticians and understand why their calculations go beyond what was presented earlier. There's something, and I don't understand it all. I'm not a statistician, but there's something called the Z factor. There's several steps that happen after the information that was presented earlier. So it is rigorous. It is prepared by experts. There's a 12-page methodology that explains it all. And then all of a sudden I realized, yeah, this is real. This is not your niche website, just ratings of each school, where they dump you, where they say, oh, you're ranked 8 or you're ranked 9, along with 50 other schools. They actually have the analytical capability to resolve the granularity and substantiate these rankings and the validity of these rankings. All right, so let's move on. So Wellesley's ranked number 26. Why? I mean, that's a really good question. That's what I embarked to try and find out. I had several people approach me, even people that signed my petition, saying, hey, we just can't figure it out. Everything says that Wellesley is doing great, and I said, well, look, U.S. News is not going to hang their national reputation on a presentation just to sell magazines. It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, what I wanted to do is I wanted to stick to the facts. I mean, there's a lot of tangents I could go down right now, but I think the best thing possible is just stick to the data. And I can tell you that the data that I'll be presenting is pretty stark. And it's really, it's not just Wellesley's data, it's really the comparison with our peers. So let's get into it. All right, so here you can see the rankings, and from 2013 until last year, and it's not necessarily whether we're 26, 27, 28. It's really a trend that you ought to be looking at. Now we dropped 400% from 2014 to 2018. Now the earlier presenter was correct. There was a change in the methodology at the beginning of 2019, but that was basically a one-time change. And what they did is they added student demographics, they added more schools, and they added MCAS results. For other states, whatever state standard test they had, they added. One interesting note here is that there's no SAT numbers involved. They only use SAT numbers for states that don't have standardized examinations. And then they added demographics for more fair comparison. And basically what that is they looked at the performance of each minority demographic across the state and then compared that to each individual school minority performance, and they called that the equity gap. So the earlier presenter was also correct. You can't compare 2019 or post 2018 with the years before it. They're not directly comparable. But I think the trend here is what you really need to be looking at. Okay, so where's the problem? So the ranking is 40% AP, 40% MCAS, 10% graduation rate, and this 10% equity gap. So as was stated earlier, the high school does very well in MCAS. They also do very well with the graduation rate. With regard to the equity gap, I really can't speak to that. That may have some impact in our low ranking, but again, it's only 10%. So what you really need to focus on is the AP exams. And that's in fact where we found the problem. And again, this is the U.S. News is just an indicator, okay? It's not an absolute end all be all. It's an indicator, and you ignore it at your own peril. You know, one of the earlier speakers mentioned they don't know why people aren't moving to Wellesley. Well, you know, this report is actually used, these rankings are actually used in a lot of real estate websites. Not only are they used in a lot of real estate websites, they're used in other school, I won't call them ranking because nobody gives an absolute rank like US News, but they, you know, they give you a relative performance. So again, US News is not the problem. It's really the canary in the coal mine. You ignore it at your own peril. So let's start taking a look, drilling down into what's going on. Oh, before I do that, let me just mention this recent article in the high school newspaper. It was February 1st, actually, just a week ago. This kid, Ben Galligan, he hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is the issue. This is the crux of the issue. The highlighted sentence there. The administrators are aware of these rankings, yet not fazed. But the community tends to have a different reaction. Yeah, that's the situation. Why they're not fazed? I think only they can tell you. Okay, so let's look at a little comparison of Wellesley to our peers. So the first column is directly out of the first data column is directly out of US News and World Reports, and you can see all the peer school systems that rank above Wellesley. There's 15 of them. And what I left off here, I left off everything that looked like a charter school, okay, because I don't think that's a fair comparison. So as we go through this, I'm going to focus on the top 5: Belmont, Lexington, Dover, Sherborne, Weston, and Hopkinton. but you can also see the data for the others. So the data to the right of the black bar is the first three columns come from the Department of Education of Massachusetts. All that information was taken off of their website. And then I had to do some Googling around for the last two columns, but I can provide you with those sites if anybody's interested. Let's talk about the last two columns first. I think everybody realizes that the education of the parents factors highly into a child's education. And when you look at this chart, you can see that of all of our peers, only Weston has a higher percentage of college educated adults. Only Weston. That's it. I mean, our kids ought to really be succeeding. And then when you look at taxes, you know, who's got the money to spend on the schools? Well, there's only two towns that have a higher average tax rate than Wellesley. That's Weston and Sherborne. So, you know, when you look at this chart, I'm like, there's nothing on this chart that explains why Wellesley should rank at the bottom of this list. I mean, you might make a case that Weston should do better than us, but look at our student to teacher ratio. You know, it's 15% better than theirs. So I don't even know you can make that case. I mean, honestly, Wellesley ought to be up there in that top 5. In fact, I don't think you can argue that they shouldn't be number 1 based on this chart. If anybody were to look at this chart and not know anything else about our community, our administrators, our school system, I think one of the conclusions you reach is our money's not being well spent. But I'm not promoting that concept. I'm just saying, when you look at this data, you can, you know, a lot of people are going to reach that conclusion. So, okay, so what drags on the U.S. News ranking? Well, it's our liberal arts AP program. That's the answer. That's the answer everybody's been looking for. And the top chart, we'll go through the top chart because it puts the bottom chart in perspective. It gives you the school size, it gives you the senior class size, and that senior class size is important because when you calculate the percentages in the lower chart, it's that senior class population that's used. Okay, let's compare with our peer school districts what AP courses they actually offer. All right. Wellesley offers 15. We're at the bottom of that list. We offer 8 math and science and technology APs. Which is not bad. Surprisingly, Hopkinton has 10. You know, surprisingly, Hopkinton does very well in all categories in the data I'm showing you. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, Wellesley doesn't typically compare themselves to Hopkinton, but you know, I think we may want to start because they're eating our lunch. So foreign languages is a AP area that Wellesley excels in. All right. And that's the last thing I'm going to talk about, foreign languages. But now I want you to focus your attention on liberal arts. We offer 3 liberal arts AP courses that every other school on this list, every other school district offers 2 to 3 or 3+ times as many liberal arts courses. You know, somebody made the comment earlier that that taking of the AP exams was going up. Well, I'll tell you where it's going up. It's going up in math, computer science, science, and technology. I doubt it's going up in liberal arts. And when you look at the chart at the bottom, I mean, this is a comparison with other schools. It's the numbers represent the AP test takers as a percent of the senior class population. Now, just to orient you, the green is where other towns are doing better than Wellesley. The red is where other towns are doing worse than Wellesley. And the white is where they're about doing the same. So the first conclusion you reach is that our math, computer science, science and technology, they're doing pretty well. In fact, our math and computer science, I would rate as good. We're doing better than everybody else. We're not doing significantly better, but we're doing good. Science and technology, we're not quite doing better, but I think we do better than everybody else. So, I'll give them a fair rating. But when you look at the categories of liberal arts, we are doing extremely poorly. And you should know that each one of these categories includes multiple AP courses and exams. For example, I think there's about 6 in the arts and 2 in the English language arts and a bunch in the history and social science. And where Wellesley has a lot of kids taking AP courses is in economics, actually. Now, unfortunately, half the kids that take the economics AP exams fail those exams. In other words, they don't get a score of 3, 4, or 5. They get a 1 or a 2. But don't feel bad about it because that's about the national average on that particular exam. So anyway, because the social sciences, psychology, economics, because there's such a big factor in that category, I broke out history only. Now you can see that the numbers here, we're getting crushed. We're getting crushed on every line item. And why that is, I really can't tell you. So when I talk about academic excellence, this is one thing that certainly we can improve on. All right, let's move on. Okay, so here's the Wellesley High School profile that Stephanie alluded to earlier. This is the 2-page profile that Wellesley gives to each college to kind of put each high school applicant, college applicant, to put their education here in Wellesley in perspective for this college. The first things you realize is, geez, we're really a liberal arts school. 60% of the student body participates in an art class. 20% of the art-intensive students pursue art as a major or minor in college. More than 60% of students participate in the performing arts. Who knew? I didn't. But anyway, we fancy ourselves a liberal arts school. So why are we underserving our liberal arts students? I don't get it. And what about our STEM students, the kids that are actually holding us respectable in the US News rankings? What about them? They don't even get mentioned in this profile. If you look at this, the eight lines behind that STEM label there, we mentioned festivals like 5 times. I'm not sure why festivals are significant to a kid's college education unless that student actually participates in that type of elective. And then he would talk about it naturally on his application. But why this as general knowledge is significant to a college, I'm not sure. I think they'd be if I were a STEM student, I'd be upset. Where's the respect for the kids that are really putting their nose to the grindstone, taking multiple AP exams, scoring very well, and keeping Wellesley from being an afterthought? Anyway, that's just my opinion. what's most concerning about this profile is actually in the lower left-hand corner. It says the master schedule constraints may preclude Wellesley High School from meeting all requests for AP courses. Really? You mean we only offer 3 liberal arts courses, and you're telling me you're not even guaranteed of taking one if you wanted to? Honestly, again, I don't see how that serves our students. So this chart here kind of puts things in and gives you a better sense of what our liberal arts AP program looks at. Honestly, I kind of don't know where to start here, but I'll start by repeating what I just said. We only offer 3 AP courses, but you're not guaranteed to get into any of them. So now I think the striking thing here, let me give you, before I go on, let me give you some background. My daughter excels in English language composition, and she wants to take this liberal arts path in Wellesley High School. So, we're not in the school system right now, so I was concerned about the registration process. So I reached out to the high school, and I reached out, basically just to get the logistics, how to sign up. But then, since she's interested in English language composition, I asked them about the AP courses, because at that time I was reading the possible courses she could take, and I was looking at these advanced college placement courses. Well, naturally, I thought that term is just interchangeable with advanced placement. But lo and behold, when I got into this conversation with the school, they told me, no, that's just a mid-level course, that their highest courses that are AP level or better are the honors courses. And I said, okay, well, I kind of picked up on that AP level or better. I said, well, okay, well, what makes them better? And it's kind of like, the response I got was very similar to what we heard earlier. It was, well, these courses are very rich in information. They paint a broad brush, and they're very in depth. And I'm like, okay, is that it? Yeah. Okay, well, what I hear from that, and I don't mean to be facetious, but I hear, the emperor is wearing clothes, and the emperor is actually wearing very rich, beautiful clothes. I'd really like to see the same database that Stephanie alluded to earlier, that our graduates from this program are getting into the better schools at a higher rate, because we have these honor programs and we don't teach AP courses. So the next question I asked is, okay, if I'm a college guidance counselor, not a college guidance counselor. If I'm a college admissions officer and I'm looking at 2 students, they're basically equivalent in all areas, except one has 2 AP courses under their belt, and the other one has 2 Wellesley honors courses under their belt. Well, I said, I don't know anything about college. I don't know about the application process, but it seems to me that I would naturally select the child that has the 2 AP courses under their belt, because I don't know anything about these Wellesley honors courses. I know the AP courses are taught to a standard curriculum. And so I know what to expect. I know what that child has learned. And I know that getting an A in that course means a lot. I don't know what getting an A in a Wellesley honors course actually means. So when I was talking with the school, I said, I mean, wouldn't you agree with that? And the response was, no, 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 no. What we do is we send the colleges a profile sheet, and when they see that our honors courses are actually the highest courses a child can take, then they naturally equivocate that on an equivalent basis. They naturally compare it to an AP course. So it's just in the college admissions officer's mind, our honor courses are just as good as AP courses. And I'm kind of thinking about that. And I'm like, well, okay, but what if I'm a college and I know a lot of Wellesley students and I'm familiar with the Wellesley school, and I know there's one really good English language composition teacher there. And I know, yes, his honors course is better than any AP course. Well, great. But what if the student that's applying has a different teacher? I don't even know that that different teacher is teaching the same curriculum. So again, I think it's a bit of a reach to say that colleges would look at our honor courses as equivalent or better than AP courses. Okay, so that's the conversation I had with the schools, with the high school. And the only thing I want to say about this chart is that the really concerning problem is not even shown here, but let me show you that. Okay, the chart you see in yellow tells you that the #1 nationwide most popular AP exam is English language composition. Well, in 2021, Wellesley High School had 3 people who took that AP exam. English literature composition is #3 in nationwide, but Wellesley only had 5 takers. And you need to understand that of those 5 takers, 3 of them could be the same people that took the English language composition. So what's going on here? I mean, really, it's the #1 and #3 most popular AP courses in the nation, but yet we only have 3 to 5 kids taking. And because there's less than 10 kids that took these AP exams, I can't tell you how many passed and how many failed. But something's happening. I mean, the students, I don't know. Maybe the students feel like after they've taken our honors courses that they're just not qualified to take these AP exams. I don't think there's any other. I don't think there's any other explanation. Oh, but let me go back to my conversation with the high school. They actually told me, and I said, "What about that? After my child takes these honors courses, can she take an AP exam? Will she pass it?" And the answer was, of course. They're all the students who take these courses are highly qualified to pass that exam. Oh, well, I don't know. Obviously, the students may not agree with that, because I don't think anybody wants to take an exam they know they're not going to pass. So, but again, the high school said, well, if we didn't think they could pass them, we wouldn't offer those exams to be taken in Wellesley, and we do offer them. So we do believe that every student is qualified. Again, I disagree. So here's a statement by the Massachusetts State Education Secretary, James Pizer. And I couldn't have found a better statement to explain the importance of AP courses and AP exams. And the one thing I want to point out is what I highlighted in yellow. and that he believes that AP courses stand out in college admissions. All right. And we need to encourage more opportunities for our children to be taking AP courses. And you know, not to mention the college credits. I mean, like Stephanie mentioned, if you can place out of college courses by taking an AP exam, you can save tens of thousands of dollars. Now, by not offering these exams, I think it really only serves to increase the equity gap, because, you know, most Wellesley parents can afford the extra money, but, you know, the underprivileged kids, you know, they missed out on an opportunity to place out of these courses. Okay, so now let's look at the middle school. I want, you know, my intention was to keep this on the U.S. News high school rankings. But then I realized, wait a second, you know, the pipeline to the high school is the middle school. So in trying to evaluate whether the situation at the high school is going to get better or get worse, I think you need to look at the middle school. And you need to remember that, you know, when you get to high school, you can't just walk into an AP level course. You know, you have to be incrementally brought along. And I'm not sure, I'm not an educator, so I don't know if that's an 8th, 9th, 10th grade thing, or if that really starts back in 6th grade. I don't know. I just know you can't walk into an AP level course if you haven't been properly prepped in the earlier grades. So I do think this is important. And when you look at these numbers, keep in mind that higher numbers here represent poor performance. Okay, so this is the percent of students who do not fully meet expectations on these MCAS exams. So let's just start out with 6th grade ELA. Wellesley seems to be doing very well there. Again, the red is where Wellesley is doing better than these other towns, and the green is where these other towns are doing better than Wellesley. All right. So in 6th grade, the ELA, we look like we're in pretty good shape. But now when you go down the list and you start looking at math, and you start looking at 7th and 8th grade ELA, where the numbers get progressively worse. I mean, the disparity between Wellesley and these other towns is not, I mean, is significant. I mean, we're talking like 25, 30% worse. So again, I don't know why. I'll tell you one thing, you can't blame it on the pandemic. All these other schools went through the pandemic. So something else is happening. Again, I don't know what. Maybe it sounds as if I'm not as well versed as Stephanie is in math curricula and how schools level that out. But it sounds like Stephanie might be onto something, and that we wait until much too long, until 8th grade, to start offering you know, different levels of math. I know my 6th grader, there's 3 levels of math she could be taking. And I think the 5th graders even have 2 levels they could be taking. But that's true. That's true at my daughter's school, 6th, 7th, and 8th, that 3 levels of math that the middle school kids can be taking. So again, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to explain this. Hopefully our educators can explain it. The only other things that I'd like to point out is that Wellesley ranks 46th in the middle schools on the U.S. News ranking. Unfortunately, I think that's the ballpark of where Wellesley High School will end up shortly, because I do think this is predictive. The only other thing I want to say is, I've heard rumors about optional math homework. And like I said earlier, my sixth grader, she has 30 problems a day that she has to do. And, it's not only the math that she's learning, it's really a lot of English because you really have to understand how to parse those math questions and to figure out what are they really asking me on this problem. So I'm concerned. And now, again, I'm not in the school system. I don't know if these rumors are true or not true, but I caught wind of some mom that was in a panic on the Wellesley Concerned Parents Coalition Facebook page because all of the Russian mathnasium, all those classes were full. And she just realized that her kid was way behind in middle school. So the middle school is a pipeline. It needs to be looked at in conjunction with the high school. So the Warren article is pretty simple. I'm not saying teach to the U.S. News rankings. I'm just saying we ought to be performing better academically. And if there's a more comprehensive way to look at that than what U.S. News offers, I'm open to suggestions. It's again, U.S. News is not absolute. It's the trend. It's an indicator. It's sounding an alarm, and people ignore it at their own peril. And it's just a measurable benchmark. So for the lack of anything else, I think it does a pretty good job of capturing the relative performance of a school. And unlike some of these other websites, like the Niche website and like Great Schools website, where they only rate a school, they don't rank a school. I think absolute rankings are important. And I think if our educators would actually sit down with the educational experts at RTI International and have a discussion with them about their methodology, I think they would explain to them why a superficial comparison that was done earlier is somewhat misleading. I know from looking at the methodology, which comes in a report that's 77 pages, of which there's really only about 12, 13 pages of methodology. But I know from looking at that methodology that there's a couple more steps that occur after the rankings that were presented earlier. So, and it involves statistics and Z factors. Hey, I don't understand it, but I would be happy to accompany our educators and go take a field trip and sit down with these people and understand, why their ranking system is statistically meaningful. Heck, I mean, I'd even pay my own way. Anyway, I believe the U.S. News rankings they're certainly established. They're trusted by a lot of people across the nation. They're easily accessed. Our educators may put up, arguments why you shouldn't pay any attention, but that information is not out there. I mean, I always like to tell both sides of the story. Trust me, I don't like to focus on one side of a story. But, when people look at moving to Wellesley, they don't have access to anything else. And this, you just Google it and this pops right up. It's a trusted news site and it has a reason for being trusted because their methodology is legit. It's legit and it's compelling. Okay, the only other thing I want to say about the Warren article, and it's the first one I've ever written, so honestly, I don't know how to write them. But I believe it's written broadly enough to allow for specific implementation pathways. So let's take a look. So here's an action plan. the first part of the action plan would be to add an academic excellence parent advisory to the school committee. All right. And then, I throw out some, a process by which we could do that. Then the next step would be to increase the transparency for the AE advisory. Now, again, I want to point you to that Naviance database, because that database we do not have access to. And hopefully our educators, I'm hoping their response to what I'm saying here comes out of that database, because that database tells us, what colleges our kids are getting into, at what rate they're getting into these colleges. And I assume it can go back in time so that we can see what's the trend here. Are college admissions doing better than they used to, or are they not doing better? And that, I believe, is very important. But anyway, I've laid out a bunch of information that I don't have access to, that I think an academic excellence advisory should have access to. And then, if we implement the first two items, we've gone a long way. But honestly, I think what really needs to be done is I think there needs to be a third-party audit of the school system. I think it needs to evaluate the educational strategy and effectiveness. Are our children being underserved? Why do we only have 3 liberal arts AP courses? There's a lot of questions to be answered. So I really do think it's important. I would encourage you to think, long and hard about it. Because again, I'm not the expert here. I'm just the messenger, and trust me, please look at me as just the messenger. Okay, Stephanie, before I click on to the next slide, is there anything you would like to add? Is there anything I might have missed, an important point or anything?
I think you covered everything. So.
Okay, well then here's the final slide. The writing is on the wall. U.S. News has sounded the alarm for the past 7 years. 350 students, and this is just anecdotal. I may be wrong. I heard 345. I don't know. But about 350 students have left the Wellesley School in the last 2 years. So I do know one thing. I pulled my 2 kids. Nobody asked me why. Is anybody asking these parents why? Are your kids coming back? Was it only the pandemic? It would be very interesting. I'm not sure if our educators want to know. I would think somebody would want to know. I know if I lost 350 employees out of my company, I'd certainly want to know. But right now, I don't think anybody knows. So again, our liberal arts AP program is our weak link. Only 3 Wellesley High School students took the national #1 AP exam. I don't know what accounts for that. I really don't. But there is something seriously wrong there. Our other AP, our other AP exam participation rates, they trail our peers by orders of magnitude. Not just by a couple of percentage points, orders of magnitude. Our middle school MCAS results indicate further high school decline. I mean, seriously, why am I the one delivering this message? I mean, should the school have gotten out in front of this and said, hey, this is what's happening. We're taking care of it. This is how we're taking care of it. Trust us, it's going to be fixed. I haven't heard any of that. But again, I'm not in the school system, so maybe they have, and I just haven't heard it. I guess what really concerns me is whether or not, anybody's going to use circular logic to be, to eliminate more liberal arts classes. for some reason, I'm not sure if our kids are being discouraged from taking AP classes. I'm not sure why the participation rate is so low. But is anybody going to say, well, gee, now that the participation rate is so low, maybe we should eliminate another one? I certainly hope that's not the case. I hope it goes along with the previous presenter's conclusion that kids want to take these AP exams at a higher rate. And so we should actually be increasing them. So look, we're in the fourth quarter. Actually, we're way behind. We're way beyond halftime. We're not in the third quarter. We're in the fourth quarter, and we're probably in the last 2 minutes. So what's the game plan? I don't know. I really don't. Maybe somebody could explain it to me. Sometimes I'm pretty slow on the uptake. I hope there is an explanation. Is whatever the game plan is it working? I don't know I don't know what the children are being taught. I don't know what they're not being taught. But I can tell you this, that the data suggests that it is not working. And to continue down this path of whatever we're doing just doesn't make any common sense. Or continuing down it or doubling down on whatever we're doing, I don't know. It just doesn't, it sounds like, I don't know, what's the definition of insanity? Maybe that's it. But the data clearly suggests it's not working. And again, I hope the high school comes back. I hope the educators come back and they have the Naviance data with them, because that is the one thing that could help sway me, is if our children are getting into better and better schools at a higher and higher rate than they used to. Okay. So I think the first step here is for somebody in Wellesley to say, hey, wait, we need to do something different. And I think the first step would be to prioritize academic excellence. So that's pretty much, all I have to say. Oh, wait, there is one more problem.